Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Today we'll be looking at the Arkunasha War. This occurred in the aftermath of the Damocles Crusade, in which the Tau sought to consolidate their control over newly won worlds from the Imperium of Mankind. Unfortunately for them, a massive Ork war named Doc arrived to spoil the fun. Let's take a look, shall we? Here we go! In the aftermath of the Damocles Crusade, it was a commander known as Oshava which rose in influence, after leading his forces to numerous victories on the planet of Arkunasha. In the following period of peace, after repelling the Imperium, the Tau sought to colonize this arid world. With the construction of biodomes, the Tau managed to populate this arid world. As the Earthcast diligently worked on the creation of such devices, it was also those who first found something in the sky that defied all logic. The once empty eastern parts of the void suddenly appeared with hundreds of energy signatures, with each producing so much radiation that these simply couldn't be Tau vessels. Perhaps more worrying still, the trajectory predictions placed these vessels on a direct crash course for the planet itself. Over the coming weeks, the number of lights in the eastern part of the warp continued to grow. A war led by the war boss Toothjaw had arrived to conquer the newly colonized Tau world. The opening act of war consisted of the Ork space vessels smashing their giant asteroid fortresses into the planet's surface, in a crude act of landing. However, this proved a most wise action in reality, as the Tau Earthcast firing solutions were effective against conventional landing craft, able to depressurize and destroy these before they reached orbit. And as is the Greenskin way, there is nothing normal about this assault, with essentially all of the Tau firepower proving useless against the landing assault. The number of Orkoid ships slamming into the planet's dunes grew. The sheer number of landing vessels took the Tau by surprise, and they took to calling this Gorakar, or Death Hail. Initial efforts to neutralize these landing parties by Hunter and Defender cadres proved futile. The vast number of Orks which would pour from these landing vessels would see these teams overwhelmed, and would often lead to these falling back rather than engaging the Greenskins. By the time Commander Sho arrived in the planet's orbit, it had already been overrun except for a few units that were holding within their besieged biodomes. In typical Tau fashion, the commander was shocked that the Greenskins had left no preparations for Tau reinforcements to be brought to bear, clearly not appreciating the simple nature of the Ork mindset. The commander, alongside reinforcements, arrived on world and began engagements with Ork supply lines and early tests of the Greenskin force. This is where Commander Sho realised that the Orkoid command structure was brutally simple, and that the largest was in charge. Sho also noticed that the Greenskins would fight with one another in the absence of a common foe. This is when Commander Sho had a brilliant thought, and so over the next year a period known as the Great Thinning would take place. The commander ordered his stealth battlesuits to track Greenskin hordes and eliminate the Ork in charge. This would set off a chain reaction of events that would often lead Ork hordes tearing each other to shreds. Using the Tau technology to further stoke these flames, Commander Sho and the Tau Earthcast deciphered the Orkoid language and had comm projectors deliver insults to these hordes that seemingly originated from friendly Orkoid warbands. By this point, the commander's ability to seemingly foresee events that the Greenskins would carry out next had him earn the name Commander Farsight. However, despite Commander Farsight's best attempts, the number of Orks on the world was increasing at a worrying rate, and worse still, they had seemingly adapted to the world's deadly sandstorms. These revelations damaged the Tau's morale critically, and with this, the assassination campaign would end. Commander Farsight poured time into what would be known as the Book of the Beast, a study of the Orkoid psychology which would circulate to every cadre on the planet. Over the following years, whilst the war raged, Commander Farsight continued to adapt and improve Tau tactics, with teams of fire warriors able to drive Ork war parties into devastating ambushes led by the firepower of the Tau battlesuits. Over a series of these engagements, the tides of war slowly seemed to shift in the favour of the Tau as they regained the initiative. Perhaps the main event of the Arkunasha War was the massacre of Ghoul's Gorge. This is when the Orc force used a drill-equipped stomper to break into the Tau biodomes. In a stroke of genius, Farsight managed to bottleneck the swarming Orcs within Ghoul's Gorge. As the tides of battle seemed to be in the Tau favour, strange shields began to emerge covering the Orc force. It was then that Farsight realised that the Orcs had access to force shields that would protect them from the Tau firepower. As the Orcs continued their approach to the biodomes, Farsight understood that there was only one way to engage the now protected Orc force, and that was to step inside of these fields and meet them in close quarters combat, in exactly the position the Orcs wanted them. This proved to be disastrous for the Tau, and after several failed attacks, Commander Farsight issued the order to retreat. Following this retreat, the commander would meet with Ethereals who would inform him that they were to abandon the planet over the coming years, and had begun the evacuation process. This was now strictly a defensive campaign until this process could be completed. Although Commander Farsight disagreed with the decision, it was for the greater good, and therefore he would reluctantly carry out this order. After the evacuation, the Firecast would return to the planet just a year later, and with the Tau having left the planet, the rampaging Orc forces had turned on one another, and had reduced their size to less than 1/100th of its original invasion size. With this fresh offensive and careful planning, the Tau made short work of the remaining Orcs, and with it, recolonization would begin. That's it for the Arkunasha War. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give the video a like, and maybe even subscribe below. Cheers!